And now, broadcasting from the Ginger and Baker Studio in the heart of the Music District in beautiful Old Town Fort Collins, Colorado. It's Live at Lunch here on KRFC 88.9 FM, streaming worldwide on krfcfm.org. Support for Live at Lunch comes from Canvas Credit Union, helping Coloradans afford life. Today's guest has completed his new album and is currently releasing singles from it and will be performing a Christmas concert at the Rialto Theater in Loveland, Colorado with Tom Ewing on December 5th, 2024. I'm your host today, David V., and today's musical guest is Dave Beegle with Christian Teal and Michael Olson.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Dave Beegle and friends here on KRFC's Live at Lunch. Oh, Dave, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in today. Wow, you went kind of from a Middle Eastern feel to almost a Pat Metheny jazz fusion feel there. And
yeah, that was, just kind of, I have a lot of varied influences that I tend to write in. Mm-hmm. And that was, unlike me, I'm a little more rocky or Middle Eastern-y, and the smoother jazz thing isn't really as much my gig, but it kind of came
beautiful.
out.
Yeah, it sounded beautiful.
Thank you.
Is that what you were listening to when you were growing up?
My dad was a piano player, and he turned me on to a lot of great music, but he was a fan of the Four Freshmen, Dave Brubeck. I've realized a lot of my Middle Eastern influence was actually Dave Brubeck's Blue Rondo a la Turk, which is based off of Bulgarian folk rhythms. I'm like, sweet, I never knew that. No wonder why I like Bulgarian music. And then Oscar Peterson and, that kind of stuff.
A lot of jazz.
Sergio Mendes in Brazil, 66. He liked music that was melodic and nice, but had some, some
rhythm
creativity and some complexity and chordal things to it. So it's actually served me well growing up like that.
So you're using some special tunings there.
Oh yeah, I can't really write songs in alternate or in standard tuning very well anymore. So
you grew up here in Colorado?
I did. Yeah. Well, I moved here when I was 6, so I grew up in Colorado.
Yeah. Where from originally?
Liberal, Kansas, and my folks were from Beaver, Oklahoma.
All right.
Yeah, it's the cow chip throwing capital of the world for those who don't know. So I'm quite proud of that.
We'll have to make a vacation there just for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of tunings, you were one of the first people to demonstrate the Trans-Performance automatic tuning guitar.
Yeah.
The digital tuning system, and people like Jimmy Page, Joe Perry, Graham Nash used it. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was, it was, I think, later 80s when Neil Skinn here in Fort Collins, him and a couple of folks invented that, and they contacted me to see if I could be a demo guy, which was, great for me because I'm like, oh, I love tunings. I was a good guy for that because I had really already gotten into that. Part of it was Jimmy Page's influence.
Sure.
And so then I took the first demo unit home and immediately started getting real creative with it and writing songs with multiple tunings and tuning changes. And, at first, unfortunately, it never really took off. But for a while, when I would carry the demo unit around, I would look around behind me to watch out for guys with dark sunglasses and suits following me. I'm like, they're going to want to steal this,
Steal the technology.
Yeah.
Well, because you can access like thousands of tunings.
Oh, I forget, a couple hundred, more than you would ever, practical tunings you could do most anything you'd ever think of. And so, yeah, I still use it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the Fourth Estate music on the second record was composed with that guitar,
Speaking of Fourth Estate, that was kind of an early Colorado progressive rock.
Absolutely.
For lack of a better term.
The power trio instrumental progressive rock.
And that was for what, about 10 years?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, we started in about 86, I think. And, we did a couple records, and Michael became our second bass player. And we had a great time. I'm still proud of a lot of that music.
Oh, it's great music. And you even played a lot of, like I think there's one of them is a live album where you're doing some blues and stuff like
exactly.
Jeff Beck's version of I'm Going Down or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like which rip.
I know.
By the way.
I like so much stuff, so I'm happy to get to be a part of a lot of different things when I get to.
And you teach.
I've been doing that for a long time.
And mentor a lot of other artists here in the northern Colorado area, and so that's one of your side gigs. Obviously, is teaching, and I'm sure that keeps you super busy when you have time away from writing and performing and recording and
right. And I do a lot of producing. That's probably most of what I do. Maybe 50-60% of what I do is producing other artists, which I love to do. and then, performing and doing my music as well as teaching.
Do you use any specific studios here in town for that?
Well, I have my own studio.
In Loveland?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's it called?
Doghouse Studios.
Doghouse Studios.
And there's plenty of Doghouse Studios around. So anyway, it wasn't my idea.
What would be the contact for that? Doghouse
Just through my website, davebeagle.com.
davebeagle.com. Well, there you go. Well, thanks so much for coming in today, because we do want to check out I assume those first two were brand new songs.
Exactly, two songs that are on the next record, which hasn't been I'm going to still make a CD because I love those things. But I'm starting to release digital singles. And
radio still like CDs. You can lose the digital, but you can't lose those CDs unless you're trying hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've talked about this, and I'm sure you've told 100 people, but the elephant in the room is you had a minor accident here not too long ago, and people are always asking us, boy, they were surprised that you're going to be able to come in for a Live at Lunch. Why don't you tell us a little bit of what happened that day and what's been happening since?
So I have, at least at that time, I had my morning routine of getting out. I like to try to get up before the sun, which is not a typical music thing, and watch the sunrise up on top of the hill just behind our house.
You live in West Loveland?
Yep, just out in the Devil's Backbone area. And so I was doing my normal, exercise, and I like to scramble around on rocks and stuff, and there's a cliff right there that I'll pick various ways to do. I don't like to go to gyms, but I like to be active, so I get to do some upper body stuff. And there was a section that I had gone over that was maybe 15 feet that done it 100 times, and I was doing it 101 times, and somehow I lost my footing, and I always grab a rock. So, if your foot slips, you're holding on with your hand. And I don't know what happened to this guy, but he didn't stop me either. So I slipped and fell 60 feet straight down, and then bounced another 100 feet or so, head over feet.
Hitting rocks on the way
down?
Oh,
yeah. And I remember hitting 5 times. Maybe there was more, but I was fully conscious through the whole thing and landed, and I'm like, that's not good. I went to call 911. I had my cell phone in my pocket, and I reached in and grabbed my cell phone, and I looked at it, and it was completely demolished. And I'm like, that's not good.
And that's amazing right there, because you broke both arms?
Yeah. Well, this one was only broke there, so I demolished this one. So I grabbed it with my left arm. My wife was coming up to meet me, so at that point, then I thought, Sandy's on her way. I'm going to alternate between praying and yelling for my wife, and then I went to kind of cover myself because the sun hadn't crested the hill yet, and I went to move my right arm to cover myself, and my shoulder moved, but my right arm didn't.
Wow.
And I'm like, uh-oh. And I think I started to get a little bit
lightheaded
and going into shock, But I was fully aware. And she, 5-10 minutes later, came up, and I heard her yelling. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, call 911." So I think there was maybe 5 or 6 different first responding teams that came. And it was a 3.5-hour technical rope rescue, getting me down the hill to the helicopter, flew me to the hospital, and did 6 hours of surgery to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Horrible gash in your back.
Oh, yeah. I lost a lot of blood.
But you've gone through your physical therapy.
I'm
miraculously healed.
I am just thankful to be alive. And
you didn't hit your head. And you didn't break your hands.
I should be dead, or I should be at least paralyzed.
Wow.
And God has a sense of humor, because not only did I not break any fingers, and how do you do that when you're falling, I didn't even break a fingernail because I do acrylics for flamenco. So it's like, I didn't break a nail. That's good, So, and I was walking on day 3.
Wow.
Not what was my idea. They're like, "I think you should walk." I'm like, "Okay, let's try it." And
they do want to get after surgery, get you up right away.
A funny story is, after the bone doctor spent 6 hours putting me back together, I talked to him after I came out of surgery, And he's like, I think you're going to make a really good recovery. It went really well. I'm like, that's great. He starts telling me about bones take about 8 weeks to heal, and you're going to make a full recovery. And I had this gig with a guy named William Topley, who I love playing with, national artist from England. And that was 9 weeks away. So on the day I fall off the cliff, I'm like, so I've got this gig in, I think it was July 13th? Anyway, it was 9 weeks after that day. And I said, what are the chances of me being able to do that? And he's like, I don't see why not. So, I immediately had this goal of like, I want to do William Topley's gig at the Buffalo Rose and Golden. And I did. I stood up for like a long 2.5 hour set. Was really tired at the end of the night, but I played with William Topley 9 weeks later. So I was pretty happy about that. So
Amazing.
I'm super thankful.
Are you still doing physical therapy, or is that almost done?
About 4 times a week.
Wow. And how long do you think that'll last?
I've got it booked until December, so we'll see how it goes.
Fingers crossed, huh?
No, I'm doing great. Just thankful for everybody's prayers, support, encouragement, and I'm just really happy to be alive, and I feel really empowered. Like I'm going to just try to have the next phase of my life be the best phase of my life yet,
Making that music.
Absolutely.
Well, what were the names of the first 2 songs that you played?
So Jubilation Song was the first song, and then the second song was Mr. Jackson.
Okay. And what are the next 2 you're going to play for us?
I'm going to start with a piece that I wrote for my daughter, and it's called My Delight. And then the piece after that will be River of Peace.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's hear some more Dave Beegle.
Let's do it.
Okay. Dave Beegle, Christian Thiel, and Michael Olson here on KRFC's Live at Lunch. Dave Beegle here on KRFC's Live at Lunch. Little Ebo with slide there, huh?
You know, I got to find as many ways to get sounds out of the acoustic guitar that are not traditional as possible.
Yeah, what brought you the Ebo? How'd you pick that up?
Phil Kagi.
Uh-huh.
He was the first guy I saw use those back in the 70s.
No kidding.
And so I'm like, gotta get me one of those. And he's still one of my favorite Ebo guys.
Well, let's see. Phil Kagi called you one of the most creative and accomplished guitarists I've met. That's a pretty nice compliment, huh?
Well, Phil's a really nice guy. Yep. And he's a wonderful person. And so, yeah, that was a really nice thing for him to say. You know, he can think what he wants. Yeah. I'm just trying to get better on the instrument, but it was really kind of him to say that.
Well, and since we're giving accolades here, Progression magazine labeled you a guitarist, guitar player. HM magazine called you just phenomenal. And Guitar magazine declared you a one-man guitar army.
I like that. And I think they had mentioned like Tom Schultz in there too, who's, he's not the flashiest guitar player, but
he was an engineer.
That guy knew how to really orchestrate some beautiful guitar stuff.
Exactly. So. Engineer that created his own guitar and guitar sounds.
And Brian May the same way. Those guys have been huge influences, great musicality, really cool things that come up with an amazing tone. And so I'd rather listen to guys with cool feel and great tone than, there's so many.
Than just a technical.
Yeah, there's so many virtuosos nowadays, which is great. Paco de Lucia is still probably my all-time favorite guitar players, and there's none more virtuosic than him. So, but at the same time, it's down, for me, I get inspired by emotion, passion, sound, and of course, great songs, great melodies, real musicality.
And special tunings.
Yeah, that's my workaround to try to get more sounds out of me being a lonely guy all by myself, trying to sound like more than one person.
More than one guitarist. Well, before I get over to Christian and Michael, I know in the past you and I have talked about this, and I think our listeners would probably be interested to know that you had an interaction with the band Kiss at one time.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I think I was 20, maybe, and there was a musician I was working with who had a musician that he worked with who had a bandmate that was a tech for Kiss. And so this guy basically got my stuff to Gene Simmons, and I guess he was the picky one. But I called him on the phone one night, and it was kind of funny because we all know Gene's personality now. But I'm like, so you guys want to fly me out or what? He's like, oh, we can't be flying people all over the country. You got to send us a tape. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, So that was a great motivation of like, I need to get some cool guitar stuff on tape so I can send it to Gene Simmons.
Had you not recorded anything before?
Not really. I had, but like, I'm like, what are you guys looking for? And they're like, the next Van Halen, the next Randy Rhoads. I'm like, well, those guys are pretty good. Yeah. So I got my tape together and sent it, and then their manager called, and and I was just like a naive kid, and he actually woke me up. They're calling from New York, and this is, I forget who it was, from Kiss, wanted to set up a schedule for you to come out and audition in New York. And I'm like, so you liked my tape? He's like, of course we liked your tape. I wouldn't be calling you. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just a knucklehead from Loveland. So I flew there. It was the first time flying by myself. I didn't even know how to take a taxi.
Was it first time in New York too?
Yeah, oh yeah. And I'm sitting there at the airport with a guitar case, and long hair, and people are like, who's this guy, And so I'm like, I took a taxi and I gave them an address, and they took me to Studio Instrument Rentals, sir. But a cool part of that was Judas Priest was rehearsing in the big room, and Pat Benatar was rehearsing in another room.
Neil Giraldo, pretty good guitarist too. Yeah.
Oh, he's phenomenal. And then Kiss had a smaller room just to do auditions. So, and I was fine. I didn't do great. They didn't actually hire anybody that they auditioned. That's when they hired Vinnie Vincent, who had already been writing with them. So, but it was great fun, and I was
good experience, huh?
Yeah, I flew to New York and back home on the same day.
So that close to being a world superstar with Kiss. Huh?
You know, I'm really thankful I'm a guy that plays guitar in Loveland. And I feel like as long as I've been doing it, I don't think of myself as I could have been great in the 80s. I think of myself as like, well, that was a great thing, and Fourth Estate was great, but there's so much stuff that I want to create as an artist, and I love producing people that it's like, I don't look back, I'm just like, there's so much stuff ahead of me. I'm trying to get through as much as I can before my life is over,
Well, still creating and making fantastic
Absolutely.
music, and that's what's keeping you going, it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
It's what's helped with your rehab too, apparently.
And the prayers of people, the grace of God, and lying there in the hospital room thinking, wow, I should be dead, I should be paralyzed, my fingers aren't broken. And it was just like a real inspirational time with God. It's like, okay, you've got more stuff for me, and I really want to just, not waste time. And first of all, just live with gratitude, And so that's a great motivator for any human on the planet,
I believe so. Well, I'm good. Christian, you've got there's that mic. Christian
One
Teal.
of my favorite musicians that I've ever worked with in my long and illustrious career.
Well, Christian, you're also a guitarist, did I hear too?
Well, I've been getting
Yes.
more and more into guitar. I've played a little acoustic in the past, but my brother is a luthier on the side, and he made me a Les Paul Jr. a couple years ago.
Oh, nice.
And I just got bit by the bug. I have way more pedals than anybody of my skill level should own, and a slew of electric guitars that I've purchased. Actually, I've got a couple Nash guitars. Bill Nash was the son of my dad's old trombone teacher. My dad was a studio musician in L.A., and the guy that got him in the business, his son now makes Nash guitars. So it was kind of a fun full circle moment.
Well, it takes me to the next question. Your dad was musical, obviously. Is he one that got you interested in being a musician? Or?
Yeah, when I was finally old enough that I was allowed in his studio, he played bass trombone, but he had a drum set because he wanted to work on having better time, and I went over and sat down, and I still remember that moment. It was kind of a zing, and it was, from that point on, he was very supportive. He never said, you guys have to play music or anything, but just anything we were interested in, he'd help us get an instrument and get us lessons. And he would take me to sessions sometimes. And, when you're he would mostly did movie soundtrack work. So you've got, 80 people in a room. Yeah, busy in LA. But he would set me in the back and say, don't make a sound, It's just like, everybody's on the clock and everybody's watching everything. So I would sit back by the percussionists, and they were really nice. They would show me, they had, the guys there, they have these massive cases, like a dresser on wheels. And you open it up and every drawer's got just the most amazing percussion. Yeah. So they would take me on a tour through all their cool stuff. So that was
that's where you
fun.
got all the little...
Exactly. That's why I got into
exactly
collecting.
what each one is going to sound like. And
exactly.
Everything. Wonderful. And is that what brought you out from California to Colorado then?
When I was in college, I was, I'd played with a bunch of different bands, but I found a group of guys where we just all really clicked. We all loved the same people, same influences. And one day at rehearsal, the main songwriter said, sorry, guys, I hate LA. I'm moving to Colorado. And I thought, oh well, there goes that. And his friends, about a week or two later, came back from a road trip through Colorado and had all these pictures up in the mountains. And I said, wow, Colorado looks pretty nice. And I went to college in my hometown, so I thought, I'll go for 2 years. I'll treat it like going away to school. And the second I drove into Boulder, it was just my shoulders dropped about a foot, and it's just like, oh, this is more my speed. I'm glad to be out of the LA freeway system.
A little bit of fresher air.
Yeah, for sure.
When there isn't a forest fire.
Yeah.
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 Well, all right. So what are your musical influences then besides show tunes?
I love all kinds of music. I really love Peter Gabriel. I love great songwriters. Jeff Beccaro and Steely Dan and those kinds of things, more like
Toto.
session guys. Yeah, Toto, all that stuff. I grew up playing to those records. Definitely had a Neil Peart phase. I was a big Rush fan.
Any percussionist, you pretty much can say.
I always tried to convince my dad Neil Peart was the best drummer in the world. He's like, why don't you go listen to Elvin Jones? Go listen to these guys. He would always play me these jazz drummers, and I was glad to have both, but I definitely had that that moment too.
Are you playing in other bands right now?
I play with a few singer-songwriters, Rebecca Folsom sometimes, Marco Blinger.
Both of
Liz
we've had them both.
Barnes.
Yeah,
And then I play in the house band for E-Town, a radio show.
oh, how nice is that?
I've been doing that for about 26 years.
Well, that
so
keeps you busy
that's
weekly, huh?
been really
and
great.
playing with all kinds of fantastic artists from all over.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been an education for sure.
All right. Well, we're honored to have you here today too.
Thank you.
Need to speak over there with Mr. Michael Olson. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having us.
Oh, wonderful. And obviously, Mr. Bass Player, multiple basses, and have always been a bass player?
Since I was 12, how's that?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yep, I played. The story goes that my brother and I, who were both friends of Dave's little brother Morris, not so little, my brother came home with a bass and a guitar one day. And he and Morris were going to start a band, but my brother Eric was going to play the bass. And I heard him playing that, and I thought, wow, that's exactly what I want to do. I've been playing all these other instruments. And my mom said, no, I am not having you two fighting over playing the same instrument. You can play the guitar. All right, fine. So I did that for a long time, but I kept sneaking into my brother's room and playing his bass. And he kept catching me, and I paid the price for it, and 6 weeks later I'd get brave again and the cycle would repeat itself. But one day I came home from school and I heard my brother playing in his room in the basement, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to go play my guitar. Well, by the time I put everything down and got to the top of the basement stairs and looked down, there was a bass flying through the air up the stairs right toward my head, and I had to jump out of the way.
Your brother got frustrated?
Brother got very upset at not being able to figure out a song. I looked at him and said, do you want this anymore? And he goes, no! Slam! I looked at him and went, great! And I grabbed it and I went downstairs and plugged it in. And for the first time in my life, I could play that bass with my brother in the house and not have to worry about him coming around the corner.
Getting even.
And for 25 minutes, it was like, I didn't hear it, but I felt it, this voice in my head that said, remember this, because this is what you will do with the rest of your life.
That's a wonderful story, by the way.
I say 25 minutes because that's when Eric came around the corner and said, give me my bass back.
All right. Are you playing with other acts?
I've been a hired gun for about as long as I can remember. Okay. So, when people call, I fill in for a salsa band here in town called Salsa Forte. I played with a couple of Latin bands down in Denver. Dave and I both play in a cover band called the Jurassicasters. My gig life has slowed down, but I'd like to see it pick back up again. But
excellent. So. Well, you're sounding great today, and thank you so much for showing up. Are you from Colorado originally?
Almost. I have almost the same story as Dave. We moved here from Northern California when I was 5.
Okay.
So. And I moved to Loveland, about a mile away from Dave, actually.
Did you guys know each other growing up?
I knew Dave as a bass teacher when I was 12.
Do you still teach bass in addition to guitar?
I had a bass student yesterday.
There you go.
But yeah, I wanted to play bass, and I got a guitar for Christmas. So
shows that your parents know.
And I used in my high school band, I used to teach the bass player all the bass lines. And so Michael, his first day coming in, it's like, so show me some of the stuff you do. And he knew every Rush song there was before he ever took a lesson from me. Wow. So I'm like, oh, okay, wow, you're pretty good for never taking a lesson. So we moved forward quickly.
Well, what's the best place for people to go to get information on Dave Beegle if they are interested in obtaining your music, if they're interested in taking lessons, interested in seeing you live in concert?
Well, I have my Dave Beegle Music Facebook page as well as my Dave Beegle Facebook page. Mm-hmm. My music is on Bandcamp, which is a great indie, not only indie, but it's just a great resource that really supports the musicians who are releasing music. DaveBeagle.com is my website, which I believe is currently under construction.
Okay.
But that's kind of the main places. Right. And then all of my stuff is available with all the streaming services. I've got a YouTube channel, Dave Beagle Music, and I'll start expanding that hopefully this fall.
Oh, you are a busy man. I don't know when you find time to teach. Well, I tell you, I'd like to thank our crew today and like to remind everybody here that is watching and listening today that you can always go to our YouTube channel, KRFC RadioVision, and see all past, present, and future videos that we have and all the artists that we have. And it's a great place to subscribe. You click on that, you'll get a notification each week who will be the upcoming artist for Live at Lunch. We've talked so much, we've used a lot of our time, but we've got about 8 minutes left.
Great.
And I'd love to hear a couple more songs from you. What would you guys like to play?
Let's do the Classical Gas Rain Song set. So yeah,
Wonderful.
there's are 2 songs that'll be on the
new
upcoming
release.
record,
Okay.
CD,
Excellent. That's what we
physical
want to hear.
product.
Well, thanks so much today, guys. Thanks for coming in, Dave. We appreciate it. And thanks for sharing your personal experience and everything and letting everybody know that you're doing well and still making music.
Thank you so much for having us.
Dave Beagle, Michael Olson, and Christian Thiel here on Live at Lunch. Thank you for listening to Live at Lunch, and thank you to the Music District here in the heart of Fort Collins, Colorado. Live at Lunch is produced by KRFC 88.9 FM in the Ginger and Baker studio. If you'd like to appear on Live at Lunch, email our music director, David Vosick, at david@krfcfm.org.